All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling something every institutional leader wrestles with: escaping the trap of daily crises to actually build long term sustainability. We're going to explore Stephen Covey's foundational habit 3, put first things first, and see exactly how it applies to running an organization, managing your time, and finally finding the breathing room to innovate. It is all about shifting from a chaotic survival mindset into one of sustainable, proactive growth. I want to kick things off with this quote from Goethe: "Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least." Simple, right? But honestly, in the middle of a frantic administrative day, it is so incredibly hard to actually live by. This idea, though, is the absolute anchor for everything we're going to unpack in this explainer. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the leadership crisis trap, move into the urgent versus important matrix, and then cover the quadrant 2 paradigm. After that, we'll look at a real-world example of prioritizing institutional assets, and finally, wrap up with executing the strategy. Section 1, the leadership crisis trap. Let's look at the exhausting reality most administrators are stuck in right now. Get this, according to Covey, crisis-driven people spend about 90% of their time just battling immediate problems. And that remaining 10%, they're basically just escaping into totally unimportant, non-urgent distractions to cope. He compares this lifestyle to a pounding surf. A massive problem hits, it knocks you down, you struggle back to your feet, and bam, you just get slammed by another one. If you're managing by crisis, you're quite literally getting beaten up by problems all day long. So how do you actually escape that pounding surf? Well, it comes down to understanding the critical difference between leadership and management. Leadership, that's deciding what the first things actually are. It's right brain work, it's vision, philosophy, and art. Management, on the other hand, is the left brain discipline of carrying those things out every single day. As Covey puts it, manage from the left, lead from the right. You absolutely cannot manage your time effectively if you haven't first done the leadership work of deciding what truly matters. Section 2, the urgent versus important matrix. This is the core framework that fundamentally shifts how we view our priorities. We really have to separate these two concepts. When something is urgent, it requires immediate attention. It means act now. Urgent things act on us. Think of a phone ringing off the hook or an inbox totally blowing up. It presses on you, even if the matter is completely trivial. But important things, totally different story. Important matters contribute directly to your mission, your core values, and your big goals. And here is the catch. They don't usually act on us. We have to be proactive and actually choose to act on them. When you map these two axes out, you get 4 quadrants where we spend all of our time. Quadrant I is your crises. That's the stuff that is both urgent and important. Quadrant 2 is capacity building, highly important but not urgent, like long-term planning. Quadrant 3 is interruptions, totally urgent but completely unimportant, like a coworker dropping by just to chat when you're on a massive deadline. And Quadrant 4 is just pure waste, neither urgent nor important. Understanding this grid is step 1 toward taking control of your organizational life. Section 3, the Quadrant 2 paradigm. This right here is the absolute heartbeat of effective personal and institutional management. Think about how often we let urgency just steamroll what's actually important. You might be deep in a critical long-term planning conversation. Super important, right? But the second the phone rings, what do? We put the important person on hold to answer it. We prioritize a mere urgency over a core priority. To flip this, we have to remember that highly effective people are opportunity-minded, not problem-minded. They literally shrink those quadrant I crises down to size by actively feeding opportunities and starving problems through proactive thinking. So what does that actually look like in practice? These are the high-leverage activities that define Quadrant 2. We're talking about building real relationships, long-range planning, preventative maintenance, and defining your mission. These are the things we all know we should be doing, right? But we almost never get around to them because they aren't screaming at us with urgency. But here is the secret. Investing your time here is exactly what stops the crises from happening in the first place. Section 4, prioritizing institutional assets. Let's take these theories and apply them to the real world, using the Kenyan Technical and Vocational Education and Training Sector, or TVET, as our case study. Now, you might be wondering, okay, great theory, but how does hanging out in Quadrant 2 actually generate income or create true sustainability for an institution? It's a huge question, especially since leaders everywhere are under immense pressure to find new funding and become more self-reliant. Well, it happens when leaders take a hard, proactive look at what they already have: their land, their workshops, their equipment, and their staff skills. Instead of just reacting when a piece of machinery breaks down, which, by the way, is a classic stressful Quadrant I crisis, a Quadrant 2 leader proactively prioritizes these assets to discover new opportunities. They plan, they maintain, and they envision entirely new, sustainable uses for what's already sitting right in front of them. In the Kenyan TVET program, they actually blend Covey's Habit 3 with human-centered design. They intentionally carve out non-urgent time to prototype and test income-generating activities. They'll go out, conduct empathy interviews, figure out what the community actually needs, and maybe transform a dusty, underused welding workshop into a highly profitable after-hours repair service. That is pure Quadrant 2 management, driving tangible financial results. It's a brilliant example of carving out time for the important to secure the institution's future. Section 5. Executing the strategy. Because a philosophy is great, but how do we practically maintain this focus day in and day out? Making this shift takes a clear step-by-step approach. First, identify your key roles and long-term goals. Second, translate those goals into a weekly schedule. And notice I said weekly, not daily. A daily view traps you in the urgent, but a weekly view gives you the broad perspective you need to actually slot in those important Quadrant I tasks. And third, practice daily adapting. You don't rigidly ignore unexpected events. You just handle them by prioritizing based on your deeply held values, not just their noise level. In that TV program we just mentioned, this whole execution piece comes together in a signed 90-day action plan. 90 days. It's packed with specific steps, assigned owners, resource needs, and hard review dates. So the Quadrant 2 strategy doesn't just stay a nice conceptual idea. It becomes a scheduled reality with built-in peer accountability. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with Covey's ultimate challenge. What is one single thing you could do on a regular basis that would make a tremendous positive difference in your professional life or your institution? Really think about that for a second. Because whatever that activity is, I guarantee you it is a Quadrant 2 activity. It is highly important, but it is not urgent. Your challenge now is to find the courage to put it first.